Hey guys, WhiteSheep here, and today I will be breaking down the trailer for Amazing Spider-Man 2. Now, a couple of you had actually asked me and Hybrid if we were going to do this or not, and we were thinking about it. We really wanted to, but when it came down to it, we were both really busy this weekend. I've got final exams coming up, and Hybrid has his own stuff going on as the semester nears to a close for him. So we just didn't get around to it this weekend, and I'm going to mock him a little bit now. I still want to do it because a couple people have asked us to do it, and we're really known for doing that sort of, really in-depth breakdown and going into what we see. And there was so much juicy stuff in this trailer. Like, they weren't trying to hide anything. They were making it easy for us. And Hybrid says to me, "We've missed the time bubble." I was like, "You're laying down some Doctor Who shit on me. What the hell is a time bubble?" And he's like, "Well, I just think, there's a certain amount, like 3 days, and then people aren't really interested in this kind of video anymore, and it's already been done. And people have already seen videos like this." And I was like, "Dude, people are asking for us. Some of our viewers will definitely watch this. We have to on principle." And we scheduled it for today, and I was a little late, and he's busy now, so I'm just gonna make it. He actually gave me the go-ahead, so without further ado, here we go. Alright, so the first image we have here is a picture of the new costume. Obviously, the trailer starts with Spider-Man free-falling, and here we see the back of the new costume for this movie. Now, I actually like this. Hybrid pointed out to me, it's a little looser. You see, it's not a skin-tight suit, and I think that's a pretty good thing. Hybrid likes that. I'm not sure. I mean, I do like a good skin-tight suit, but we see here it's a little bit loose, and I think that, serves its purpose. It makes it seem a little more realistic. But in any event, the back looks pretty cool. We'll talk more about the suit later. And here we see Spidey lifting a car. Now, this definitely just goes to show just how strong Spider-Man is, because, spiders are really strong. I think they can lift something like 8 times their body weight, which is a really good, strength to weight ratio. But also we see in the background here, maybe Electro flipping cars. I think we saw that in the trailer at one point. He flips cars, but I'll talk a little bit about the spoilers later and just go back through some images that correlate to the spoilers. But we'll get back to that in a little bit. And here we see Peter at a gravesite. Now, there are 2 things this could be, in my opinion. Either he's visiting Uncle Ben's grave in the beginning of the movie, or he's visiting Gwen's grave at the end of the movie. A lot of people have, there are rumors out there, a lot of people are saying Gwen's going to die in this movie because Harry is going to be the Goblin and is going to kill her at the end. So far, I mean, just look at his face right here. He seems very resentful. And so that could tell me maybe it's Gwen's death, maybe it's, at a somber ending, but it's really light. Usually when we see those kind of big, serious deaths in these superhero things, it's always, accompanied with rain, with sadness, stuff like that, dark music, and just dark scenery. But from what I've heard from rumors and spoilers, rumors of spoilers, really, this movie is a lot darker, in tone, but in shots, the shooting is like it's almost, fantastical. It's just very bright and colorful, and so that wouldn't be out of place with what I've heard so far. And here we have a picture of the Rhino suit. Hybrid made a really funny joke that I'm going to pass on to you. He sees the star on his arm, and he wonders if perhaps the Rhino is working with Winter Soldier. Ha ha ha, these 2 movies are connected. Anyways, this answers the question. A lot of people were curious about when the first poster came out, where's the Rhino's head gonna be? It looks just like a giant mech, or maybe like a Megazord, really. But it seems like it could stand on 2 feet, which is big. A lot of people were complaining if it was just gonna be on 4 feet the whole time. But here we see it is definitely a mechanized suit, a little more realistic than maybe the original comic book, authentic Rhino route. But I mean, it'll be interesting to see what they do with it. Obviously it can stand and it can charge. I think it'll actually be pretty good. It'll be interesting to see what Paul Giamatti does with the character. This next picture is of particular interest to me because this picture told me, damn, they aren't saving any surprises for the movie. This movie is so transparent, it isn't funny. You can see right through it. You can tell this is Dane DeHaan, and you can pretty much tell this is him turning into the Goblin. Because of the eyes, and, you can see this thing on his ear that looks like the sort of point. To me, it almost... I know they're not doing the OG, like, Goblin cap. but it almost looks like one of the flaps from the original Goblin cap. I hear it's more like a Bluetooth headset, but Dane DeHaan definitely is the Goblin. Here we see another shot. The Goblin suit is definitely some sort of mechanized exoskeleton, so a little bit of a callback to the Raimi films. And we see his hair is a little crazy. His ears almost look pointed, which is interesting in itself. I'd love to see them do something like that. I don't know if they would, but it would definitely make him seem more Goblin-esque. And then we also see here, like I mentioned, the mech suit. Not sure if it's going to be like a flight suit or if it's just going to be designed just for him. Because as you will remember, in the Raimi films, it was a flight suit they were developing for the military. And here we see a really great shot. Me and Hybrid both love this picture because it was just a really cool thing. You know, the setting of it all and the placement of everything in the shot is really cool. Oscorp Tower in the background. Everything sort of harkens back to Oscorp. There's a chopper flying through the shot, and we see Spider-Man jumping in the background. Just a cool picture, really. And here we get a close-up view of the mask of the Amazing Spider-Man suit. Now, we've seen it before in leaked images, but this really goes to show the eyes are huge. I wish they would have gone with like whiter eyes. They look more silvery than white. But really, just the way they're outlined and the way that they did the eyes in this definitely remind me of the Amazing Spider-Man suit. Now, I wish they would change size, but that's something that I'm never going to see in a movie, at least. And here's Gwen. Hybrid made the comment that she looked too pale in the original movie, and he's really happy that she looks like she's got some color. But another thing of interest to note is the fact that this movie was the first Spider-Man film to be shot entirely in New York, which I think is fantastic for, you know, a New York-based superhero. But another thing to note, it is winter. It's Christmassy. There's lights up. Clearly, this is going to have, you know, this movie is probably going to take place in winter. Maybe that'll contribute to the dark theme. But we saw snow on the ground in the graveyard shot earlier. And here, lots of cop cars, some of them stacked on top of each other. But we see this truck, and from set photos, we know that this truck was what Paul Giamatti was driving as, I guess, a Russian mobster before he became the Rhino. And this is maybe an armed robbery gone wrong, something like that. But it also ties in the next shot. I feel like, well, first things first, we also see this suit. Again, we see it's not exactly skin tight. It is a little bit looser. More like a real suit. But, you know, here we see Paul Giamatti shooting a little bit of the Spidey sense in action, dodging bullets. But Paul Giamatti is a mobster shooting a Spider-Man. I feel like this and the last image are probably the first big action scene in the movie. Before Giamatti gets the Rhino suit, as the spoilers say, Rhino's basically wrapped up 45 minutes into the film. I feel like this is probably what the movie's going to open on for me. I feel like they're going to open with an action sequence, start things off, you know, hot, and then maybe cut to, you know, a shot at Uncle Ben's grave. Who knows? But to me, this definitely seems interesting. Paul Giamatti with face tattoos, John Adams, among other things, a great actor. It'll be interesting. I was really shocked when they announced him for this role because it's something so unlike pretty much everything that he's done before. You know, he's shown such range. He can be very good dramatically, but he can also be very funny and irreverent. But it'll be interesting to see him play this character. And here we have again a shot. Same shot from an opposite angle. Or not same shot, but same scene, really. Different shot with Gwen and all the Christmas lights in New York. Definitely seems like I've heard from, once again, spoilers, I'm going to keep referencing it, that Peter is still fairly awkward, but a lot less awkward around Gwen. And that I think is a good thing. Next shot, really interesting, really cool. First big pick of Dane DeHaan as Harry Osborn. Hybrid made a comment, it's very true. Dane DeHaan just looks, he has sort of that edge to him. I'm not really saying he's been typecast since his role in Chronicle, but he does have that look. I guess he's been, you know, set a little bit as an actor. Can't really blame him. That Chronicle performance was something special. If you haven't seen Chronicle, go check that out. If any of you have heard of Max Landis wrote that, was writing the sequel, ended up, you know, creative differences, leaving the project, but Dane DeHaan was fabulous, stole the show, was the breakout star, and I think he'll play a very similar character in Harry Osborn, and that'll allow him a chance to shine again. But here we see a very different style from James Franco's Harry. We were supposed to like James Franco's Harry. We were supposed to think that, you know, he was a cool guy. He was he was Peter's friend. And here we see maybe a more sinister Harry. Definitely a rich kid. Painted as the villain. But also here we see he's been watching Peter's family, the Oscorp, Osborn and Oscorp have. But if you look to the right, there's Uncle Ben, and Uncle Ben's been dead at this point for a while, so they've been watching him for a while. But if we go to the left, we'll see a subway, which ties into the next shot of the subway station. Now, clearly, Oscorp, there are lots of rumors that, once again, to the spoilers, Peter's blood is what causes, is what will cure Norman Osborn. And that's what Peter's father, Richard Parker, was developing. And that might be the secret underground lab or something like that. But it seems like they're keeping track of him. Maybe Richard Parker and Norman Osborn weren't necessarily colleagues, but maybe Richard was sort of forced to work for Norman. Who knows? And maybe Norman went crazy. Whatever. But here we see the secret underground lab. It looks to be a subway car. A car that's outfitted with definitely a lot of science technology. And I'll mention another thing that I've noticed in this, series is there's a strong theme of genetic enhancement and genetic manipulation. Very sciencey and cool biotech stuff. And I'll mention that in a little bit once we get into some more stuff here that we see at Oscorp. But here we have a shot of the man from the after credit scene in the first Amazing Spider-Man. Everyone's buzzing about. Here's seen in this shot and in the next shot that we've screen capped for y'all. Speculation is that he is the Gentleman. Now, the Gentleman is an interesting character in the Spider-Man mythos. First showed up in 1999. Definitely has a hand in a lot of criminal goings-on in the Marvel Universe. First appearance on film. But really, he has a big hand in the Sinister Six and getting the Sinister Six together. And as we see in this next shot, they're the Doc Ock arms and the Vulture wings. So that seems to highlight the fact that the Sinister Six will be coming eventually. Maybe, these could just be cameos, but how are you going to not use Doc Ock at least? Vulture, he's pretty campy. I can see them not using Vulture, but Doc Ock is a central villain. In the limelight now is Superior Spider-Man in the comic book world. So I really don't see any way that they're not going to use Doc Ock in the future. It'll be hard to top Alfred Molina's performance, but it's tough. This is a shot. Originally, a lot of people were like, hey, Sinister Six. We see 3, 4, and then 5, I guess, maybe behind that elevator. It looks like an elevator in the center. And then 6. A lot of people were like, oh, this is the Sinister Six chamber. This is where they're keeping people. But when they zoom out of this shot, it seems like a lot more... it seems like there are a lot more than just 6. Maybe meaning that they're just... sorry about that. Maybe meaning that they're just more genetic experiments. Who knows? This is definitely probably still at Oscorp, though. You can see there's definitely sort of that lighting and tone in the shot. And here we see another shot at Oscorp, I think. Very high-tech, sciencey stuff. Notice on the ground here it says Gen 6. Hybrid pointed that out as potentially a tie to Max Dillon, the guy who becomes Electro, played by Jamie Foxx. But what I really want to talk to in this scene, the point I want to address, is here we see a tank full of eels, and a lot of people will recognize in some I guess forms of media, in some what's the word I'm looking for, mediums. Electro has been given his powers through genetically enhanced electric eels, falling into a vat of them to be specific, and he gains these electricity powers. And a lot of people, it was rumored that this was actually going to be the case. Electro was going to fall into a vat of electrically manipulated eels and become Electro. It'll be interesting that they do that. I'm not sure if, sort of like maybe like the Vulture wings and the Doc Ock tentacles, if this is just, a throwback, sort of like a, hey, we recognize that this is a really campy way that they did it in the past, and this is just sort of like an Easter egg, if you will. But here we see, it looks like the Electro transformation, Electro being lowered into a tank, maybe filled with electric eels, maybe some sort of serum derived from the electric eels, but he's being lowered into a tank to become Electro, coming out of it. And we see sort of the blue head, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, but the effects of like the electricity in the neurons in the brain is really cool. It's something that me and Hybrid both love. It's very like the attention to detail is fantastic. And once again, I'm going to mention the sciencey stuff because that is definitely a sciencey thing. The brain, the body runs on electrical impulses in your nerves and stuff like that. And the brain is sort of like the electrical center, sort of like a relay, a power station. sending that out to your entire body. And there's another shot of him later that will throw up that sort of shows the same thing. But here we see what looks to be Electro's energy form. We have seen that in the comics. It is interesting that they would go with this, but it seems like he'll be able to separate from his body and become an energy form. It looks like he's killed some folks here. But this will allow him to move a little bit easier through like power cables and stuff, and definitely be a little more deadly to Spider-Man. This will probably come way late in the movie, towards the end, I guess. But here we also see the next shot, cutting to what looks to be the Goblin, or maybe someone in the flight suit on the glider, but there's bullet holes in the glass, and it's smoky, and some glass is shattered. So I say it's a safe bet that that is the Goblin. But looking at the glider, it looks very much like it has weapons on it. And it's really interesting they would do that, because they didn't really do that in the last movies with the Raimi films, but it looks like they'll definitely do that. It makes sense that they would have a glider. Well, I guess they did sort of do that in the Raimi films, but it would be very interesting to see like more conventional like machine guns on it again. But so once again we see this exoskeleton. Definitely looks to be sort of a throwback to the Raimi films. Maybe it's a flight suit, maybe it's not. Maybe it was just developed for Harry. Who knows? But here, another interesting thing in this shot is we see, I think it's Felicity Jones, who is the self-proclaimed Goblin's girlfriend. And I'm pretty sure Mark Webb is just face-palming every time he hears that, because I'm sure that was supposed to be a spoiler. Not to be revealed, but she went ahead and teased that anyways. And most people, I think, knew something was up, because she looks a little young for Norman. So I think most people figured, oh, is Harry going to be the Hobgoblin? But no, it looks like Harry's going to be the Green Goblin, whatever they call him. And this next shot, speaking of Norman, we see Norman is very sick, and Harry is playing the attentive son by his bedside. Norman just looks terrible, really. He's dying. Definitely seems to corroborate the rumor that he is dying and Peter's blood can save him. And maybe that's what him and Richard Parker were working on. Maybe there's like a genetic disease that he has that's potentially leading to it. But Harry, I think this also corroborates the rumor that Harry is working very hard to get that blood by any means necessary. And Oscorp science, if Oscorp is behind Electro, then that makes a lot of sense that Electro would be working for him, corroborating another rumor. But also, me and Hybrid have our own theories on how they're going to convince Electro. A Hybrid theory, and one that I wholeheartedly agree with, is that Max Dillon feels underappreciated and powerless, and sort of like, if any of you have seen Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., sort of like the girl in the flower dress with the Chinese street magician guy. Basically, I feel like Harry, and Oscorp in general, but I hope it's just Harry, is going to convince Dillon, it's like, you could be powerful, we believe in you, but do this so you'll become powerful. And then other people will see it, that you're so smart and that you're so talented. And he's going to fall for it and eventually, become evil, in traditional villain fashion. Now, this next shot, extremely interesting to me. Now, what do you see here? You see a man who, longer hair, could be back in the day a little bit, because we also see someone that looks to be an old man, perhaps Ben Parker, fighting with this guy that's dressed sort of as a pilot, or maybe a co-pilot. But another thing is, if you look closely, he's dressed as a co-pilot. He seems to be on a plane, and not any big plane. It seems to be a private plane. Just look at the way the seats are constructed. Look at the paneling in this upper left corner. There's curve, and if you sort of follow like the line of how it would be like if it was a circle, it's not a very big circle. It's not like passenger jet size. It's a private jet. And also some of this wood paneling is really high end, and I've flown on a lot of commercial jets, and I have not seen anything like that. Maybe I'm just flying on the wrong ones. Here's the aforementioned shot, way aforementioned, but about Electro's, like the electricity and the neurons and stuff like that, and the electricity pumping through his veins, but especially like up in his head. We see that, all the electrical signals bouncing around. But also, I love the use of like making his eyes like just that pitch black and using the light blue contacts. That's really cool. But his suit is interesting. To me, it almost reminds me of like the Black Manta's wetsuit a little bit. It seems very simple, just black with whatever these are. I don't know if these are like bolts, if he's bolted into this suit or not, but I'm sure that'll be explained in the movie. And here we have Spider-Man fighting the Green Goblin as Harry. Now, a lot of people were in the posters, they were like, oh, his hair is white. It seems from this that his hair is not exactly white. It might have just been lighting, because that was a very bright poster. But his hair is definitely brownish blonde, blown back, as one of the rumors, corroborated. But he's also not green. I mean, the suit is green, but he's not green. So Hybrid thinks that maybe there's a way that they counteracted that. Peter counteracted the Goblin Serum. So he's not green, but he's still, in the flight suit and flying and stuff like that, and trying to stop Spider-Man. But I personally don't think that. I think it was just the lighting in that one shot that made him look green. And he's just going to be more in general crazy rather than just green. But this seems to be a fight scene, and if you look, the background seems to be like a clock tower. And that'll come up later, but it definitely seems to be the same clock tower from a later shot. Just in terms of the way that it's constructed, and the dome up here, you can see that it is a dome. And some of the things, like the way that things are broken, and just the ironworks in general, pay attention to that. That'll come up in a little bit. And here we see a passenger, or not a passenger jet, but like a private jet going down. Seems to be the one that Ben Parker was fighting a pilot on earlier. It definitely seems to me that that is going to be like maybe Richard and Mary Parker's plane. Richard and Mary Parker die in a plane crash in the comics. They were agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in the comics, or they were revealed to be agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And in this one, they might not have been agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because I don't think that Spider-Man can say that they were agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because I'm pretty sure S.H.I.E.L.D. is, owned by Marvel itself and not Sony. But it definitely seems like they were scientists of some sort, and they were involved in some larger conspiracy thingy. Conspiracy thingy is the accurate term for that, I think. But falling from the sky, it seems like this is going to be the plane crash where they die. Maybe Martin Sheen gets out with a parachute. Maybe Richard Parker sacrifices himself and his wife, selflessly to save Martin Sheen. Who knows? They'll definitely have to explain that. And here we see Harry's transformation, unless he's just lying down to shit. I don't know how else to describe this. He seems wincing in agony. This is definitely Dane DeHaan again, you can tell. Very recognizable features, but he's sweating a lot. He seems to be on a table of some sort or on the ground. And it's likely that he's undergoing the transformation there. And here, this is a very interesting scene. The thing that I mentioned before, if you look at these ironworks, very similar to the shot a couple shots ago where it looked like, he was fighting the Goblin, or he was definitely fighting the Goblin, but you see these iron bars and these thicker iron bars, but it also, it's definitely a clock tower. And rumor is, at the end of there's a giant clock tower fight scene, and this is where Gwen is going to die, the infamous neck snap in the clock tower. And to me, my biggest question is, the whole Venom clock tower thing is a very popular, sort of, I guess, image, an idea, if you will, in comics. And will they go back to the clock tower for Venom if they do Venom eventually? Hybrid says no. He thinks they'll probably just do, the whole Sonic route. I kind of agree if they did a clock tower here. I don't think that they'll do the same thing twice. But then again, if it sells, it sells. But this is definitely Spider-Man desperately reaching down to save something, and I really hope it's Gwen, because while I would hate to see Emma Stone go, she's been really good in this role. I think it definitely is time for that to happen in this Spider-Man story. But okay, so this last shot that we're going to show you, once again, Electro in his pure energy form, he's jumping from pylon to pylon, it seems, or they both are. And Electro is just blasting him with electric energy, and this just shows you how fast Spider-Man is, that he's dodging blasts of electricity. That Spidey sense is really working for him. But this seems to be, also at night, maybe not a climactic fight scene, but probably the climactic scene between Electro and Spider-Man. Definitely something to look forward to, coming out soon. I believe next year, actually. I definitely need to get that marked on my calendar. But one issue for me is they're not being transparent at all, or they're not being transparent at all. They're being ridiculously transparent with this movie. Aspects of this movie are just leaking all over the place. Mark Webb has leaked stuff. Felicity Jones has, she's announced, I'm the Goblin's girlfriend. BJ Novak has come out and basically given himself away as Donald Mencken, Osborn's personal assistant, which is a role he's perfect for, by the way. But they're really not doing a good job of hiding anything. And I really like the movies that really don't tell us a lot, so they make me and Hybrid's job harder guessing what they're going to be about. And if you look at some of our original breakdowns for trailers like our Avengers one, we were way wrong, like completely. Looking back at it, I remember we were guessing at some stuff that was just completely like drawing at straws. And that's because, I mean, they did announce some of it, but there was no way, like, you couldn't really tell how this movie was going to be put together. But for this, it's just like so much is leaked and so much has been like revealed in trailers and, you know, through various spoilers and rumors. It's really easy to really put this together. Even some of the shot arrangements in the trailers. I mean, I know you want to show snippets of action and different shots of scenes, but some of it is like they're just beating you over the head with the fact that Dane DeHaan is going to be the Goblin. That's not even well kept. That Paul Giamatti being the Rhino isn't a big thing, but you know, you see Norman dying, and it seems, I mean, a lot of people have claimed that that one guy with the spoilers that we reported on basically just took the shots from the trailer and crafted a narrative. However, that report came out a couple days before the trailer had leaked online, and I feel like, you know, he could have just had a source that got him the trailer early, who knows. But so far, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, because from this trailer, it seemed like everything matched up pretty perfectly to what he said. In fact, I would say dead on. But we'll see. He did give away some details that are not in the trailer, so go check those out if you want to. But he's been downvoted to oblivion on Reddit. Like, I mean, because when me and Hybrid originally looked at that story, he was doing pretty good for himself. A couple upvotes. He was flying under the radar like he wanted to, but the more and more attention he got, everyone was like, bullshit meter, off the charts. And, I mean, the thing is, I just think people are generally untrustworthy and don't want to, you know, trust these sources that are, you know, giving away spoilers, because it's so easy to get trolled. But this guy seemed credible. He was handling everything in a very official manner. So who knows? I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. If you haven't already, go check out that video I made on the spoilers, or that Hybrid made on the spoilers. Sometimes I think Hybrid and myself are the same person. But it's definitely, it goes in-depth with everything. Definitely go check that out. It's fantastic. We unpack that. Definitely the biggest spoiler and rumor thread so far. But it seems to be pretty accurate through at least one trailer. We'll see going forward if it, you know, stays so true through the next couple of trailers. But anyways, definitely looking forward to this movie next year. Signing off for this trailer breakdown, I am WhiteSheep. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see all our videos. Subscribing gives you access to them. Liking just shows us that you care, and commenting is a great way to get in touch with us. Me and Hybrid are not always on YouTube, but we're on YouTube a fair amount, checking up on stuff and just talking to you guys in the comments. So if there's something you want to tell us, something you want to suggest, comments, criticism, go ahead and leave it there. We will get back to you. Most often, I think I respond more to criticism than I do to compliments. And I'm not going to bash you unless you're just bashing me. And even then, I'll probably just ignore you. Just go ahead, like, comment, subscribe. Por favor. It would be awesome. But anyways, this is WhiteSheep signing off.